Hello, everyone. I'm the director of the San Francisco Collaborative Against Human Trafficking and Secretary General of the International Alliance of Women. I'm pleased to welcome you to our event, Beyond Rescue, Delivering Justice to Women Survivors of Human Trafficking. The San Francisco Collaborative Against Human Trafficking is a coalition of over 70 law enforcement agencies, nonprofit organizations, educators, interfaith community, students, professionals in all the fields that that encounter and work with survivors of human trafficking. And we work all together on education, prevention of human trafficking, public awareness, and assisting the survivors of human trafficking. Today, we are going to focus on this important part of our work with survivors that brings them to restoration and healing. And we want to emphasize how important is this part of our work because we all understand that just rescuing them will not make them full. They need services to overcome the trauma and to reintegrate in the community. We have wonderful speakers, a panel of great experts in the field and practitioners, which is also extremely important. But first, we are going to start with opening remarks from our co-sponsoring organizations, the International Alliance of Women and United Nations Association of San Francisco. I am pleased that today with us is the president of the International Alliance of Women, Alison Brown. Alison, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Antonia. International Alliance of Women is the oldest feminist women's rights organization in the world. We were conceived in a meeting in 1902 in Washington, D.C., and officially founded in 1904 in Berlin, Germany. And we are the oldest political organization because we broke away from a women's social reform organization because they didn't want to talk about women's right to vote. And our founding members were all insistent that having the right to vote was going to be the way that we could improve living conditions for women everywhere our members lived, and possibly around the world. After some years, as one after another, our organizations achieved their goal and women did get the right to vote, it became evident that that was not quite enough. And the International Alliance for Women's Suffrage named itself International Alliance for Women, Equal Rights, Equal Responsibilities, so that we know we can get our agenda before the world, before the parliaments, be represented in parliaments and in government in all decision-making areas. We have representation at all the UN offices around the world, at the UN special organizations like UNESCO, ILO, FAO. We have representation in regional organizations such as the Council of Europe and the European Parliament, and also we have observers at the African Union and at the Arab League. We are happy to have delegates who bring the issues of our member organizations because we are an umbrella group for many women's organizations on the national and local level. To these bodies to fight for rights, one of our great ones is to have a convention on criminalizing trafficking in persons, especially women and children, which started out among other places, with my question at the United Nations in Vienna, where I happen to be representing International Alliance of Women. And to this day, we are still fighting to see that fully implemented, but it was a great start. When we get women out of the claws of their traffickers, they are not really free. They are released from bondage to one person, but they have not really gotten their life back. Where do they go? They may be in a foreign country, or they may just be far away from friends and family. How do they rebuild their lives? How do they get justice for what has happened to them, the multiple rapes? How do they get their sense of self-integrity back, their confidence in their ability to manage their lives by themselves? These things are the things that we are going to hear about today from our panel of experts. Thank you, Antonia, for putting together a great panel.
You're muted, Antonia.
And thank you for honoring our event. Alison, are you still in New York? In person at the forum, and I see other members of the International Alliance of Women support the event today. Some of them still in New York as well.
Yes, I'm sitting in my little flat. I didn't go downtown in order to be able to be here in the peace and quiet of one room.
Thank you so much. Now I'm pleased to introduce the president of the United Nations Association San Francisco to present, to deliver opening remarks. Ashley, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Antonia, and please forgive the personal privilege of conserving my bandwidth with my camera turned off. I want to be able to deliver these remarks without sounding too much like a robot here. As you mentioned, my name is Ashley Ravichet. I'm the president of the United Nations Association of San Francisco and convener of the Ratify movement. I am joining you virtually today from the 70th Conference on the UN Commission on the Status of Women in UN headquarters in New York. UNA San Francisco acts to inform, inspire, and mobilize people who live in the US to support the principles and vital work of sustaining global peace and security through dialogue and intervention rather than war. We encourage the US leadership to work constructively with the United Nations in order to achieve the goals of the UN Charter, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Sustainable Development Goals. UNA San Francisco hosts the Ratify Movement Speaker Series under the framework of UN Security Resolution 1325, Women, Peace, and Security. Provides a virtual platform just like this to discuss the intersectional and intergenerational nexus between CEDAW and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Our youth committee, composed of members under 18, are active in the anti-human trafficking movement, from budget advocacy for restoring funding to the San Francisco Human Trafficking Hotline, to our social media campaigns raising awareness of digital violence impacting our youth. We have grown our impact to identify and address online exploitation that disproportionately impacts youth today. Investing in our youth as first responders to the growing epidemic of human trafficking is key to recognizing and addressing exploitation within our communities. This one aspect is where I can confidently state that building awareness is integral to the action and positive outcomes for victims and survivors. Youth awareness campaigns have demonstrated an increase in our youth cultivating not only protective tools, resulting in abilities to identify risk and harmful grooming behaviors, reducing the likelihood of them becoming victims in online exploitation. Victims and survivors also benefit from awareness campaigns that direct them to trauma-informed community approaches and services, which you will hear more about today. I would love to thank our panelists who will share more about the victim-centered holistic services and other strong protections that can be employed at the local level for strategic interventions. Each of us can do our part to dismantle the sophisticated network of human trafficking, harming more than 27 million people in forced labor, sex work, and online exploitation. Thank you for your time, your shared knowledge on such an important topic for CSW 70. With that, I pass it back to you, Antonia.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you for the support of the United Nations Association San Francisco, not only for this event, but for multiple events over the years. You're now on camera. Thank you so much. I'm glad we could see you. And thank you for making it for us in the middle of a very busy day. Thank you. I'm now pleased to introduce our panelists, and we have a great panel. I'm so honored. I'm pleased to introduce District Attorney of Contra Costa County, Diana Beckton. I'm sorry, I'm putting people on. And our next speaker, our other speaker is Aisha Mais, MD, CEO, and founder of Dream Youth Clinic. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to speak. Rose Mukhar, and she is the founder and principal attorney of Justice at Last, our pro bono law firm serving the whole Bay Area. And last but not least, Dr. Belinda Hernandez Arriaga, and she is founder and CEO of Audando Latinos a Sonar. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you so much to all of you. And we're going to start with the presentation of the District Attorney of Contra Costa County. Ms. Beckton, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for the invitation to have an opportunity to speak with you today and to serve on this esteemed panel to talk about such important issues as access to justice. I really do have a great appreciation and support the framing of the issue today around access to justice and the focus on women and girls in recognition of the 2026 UN Commission on the Status of Women's 70th session. So for today, I'd like to focus my time on how government and nonprofit stakeholders work collaboratively across our disciplines to provide services to survivors and also to remove policy and structural barriers to their empowerment. So let me start out by saying, talking a little bit about access to justice, and I think and what it means, what justice means for survivors, if you will, of human trafficking. And I certainly want to recognize that justice, as we speak of it here, is not going to be a one-size-fits-all pathway. So for some survivors, that's going to mean prosecution. For others, it might mean safety. It might mean housing. It could mean immigration stability, or simply being able to move forward without having fear. And so our responsibility really is to listen and to create multiple pathways to justice and healing that reflects survivors' lived experiences and their choices. And so, as part of that responsibility, we listen to survivors, we respect their points of view, and create diverse pathways to justice and healing for survivors of human trafficking. And we try to respond to their needs and to their experiences. So in Contra Costa County, we have a human trafficking task force, and it is a multidisciplinary collaborative project that is co-chaired by my office, the Contra Costa County District Attorney's Office, along with Community Violence Solution. And our task force is modeled on certain principles of multidisciplinary collaboration. We work on both prevention and intervention in human trafficking. Our mission is four-part. We provide comprehensive services to survivors of human trafficking that emphasize survivor self-sufficiency and agency in employment. We hold those who exploit others through human trafficking, whether sex trafficking or labor trafficking, accountable for their actions. We also raise awareness and and build capacity to address human trafficking in our county. And finally, we harness data to guide all of our efforts. So in our task force, we have 42 member agencies, and they are represented by law enforcement, victim service providers, government agencies, workers' rights and survivor leadership organizations, and that is at the local, the state, and the federal levels. And we are strategically expanding to include those from faith communities, cultural affinity groups, identity groups, and other key stakeholders. It's an ongoing process for us of identifying where we have gaps and then engaging our stakeholders that we can partner with to better serve human trafficking survivors and to better serve our community. So we also try to take an approach that is holistic, providing holistic services and strong protections. Victims of human trafficking now have a right to have a human trafficking advocate and support person present during their law enforcement interview, and that's based on a new law. And this is a newer law that people are still learning a little bit about, but very important for survivors to see law enforcement partnering with advocates that are focused on the person's safety and also on their recovery. And systems-based and community-based organizations have different roles and responsibilities, and especially when it comes to confidentiality. So victims should have access to all partners that can help address the challenges that they're facing. We also make sure that our approach has language access and is culturally responsive in our service. So we're prioritizing that to support survivors from different backgrounds. One of the roles of our task force is to bring key stakeholders like survivors, service providers, child welfare authorities, law enforcement, bring them together to share information and resources and to identify any gaps and barriers and to strategize about shared solution. The task force is doing that in a multitude of ways. We are mapping available services for survivors of human trafficking. We are identifying and trying to fill gaps in services. We're also determining where the greatest vulnerabilities in human trafficking exist, and then conducting outreach and efforts there. And that's an aim that is countywide outreach. We have a campaign that we will launch in January of this coming year in collaboration with our Board of Supervisors. Just a few of the gaps I'd like to mention as well during my time, because we do have places where there are certain needs that I think are important to uplift because there are a lack of resources in certain areas that would be very helpful in terms of supporting survivors. One is shelter and housing. there are very few shelters that are focused on survivors of interpersonal violence, especially human trafficking here in Contra Costa County. And so we often partner with organizations outside of our county to meet that need. And so regional partnerships have become very important for us in Contra Costa County. And then also, there can be sometimes a lack of collaboration between children and family services and law enforcement when it comes to identifying surviving commercially sexually exploited youth. Because youth often run from foster care and group homes, and traffickers also recruit to out of those locations. So there really needs to be a more collaborative effort between CFS and law enforcement to respond to those particular cases, because there should be more access to community resources for that particular group of youth. And then our collaborative multidisciplinary approach, no organization we recognize can do this work alone. It's important for all human trafficking professionals to build upon relationships and really to work together in support of survivors and their goals. The survivor, it is our approach to say that survivors should lead the way on what steps and services they would like to access and when, and they should help to create our response to the crimes that they've suffered from. And so a collaborative and multidisciplinary approach requires long-term investments for us. We are investing in interagency relationships that will persist across time, strengthening our infrastructure so that we can support these efforts, and then also conflict resolution practices and a commitment to work through whatever tensions might exist and differences in approach to perspectives. And so an example of that would be criminal justice versus policy, public and health approaches. And then I guess I also think it's important to mention immigration, because we know that immigrants in our community, especially those without legal status or work authorization, are highly vulnerable to sex and labor trafficking, and that includes unaccompanied minors. And so recent enforcement practices are pushing immigrants and survivors of human trafficking into the shadows and creating even greater risk of human trafficking for those communities. So it really is essential that we work even harder to build bridges with these communities and to stand up for immigrant and foreign nationals at risk or experiencing human trafficking. I think the final thing that I would mention is survivor leadership. And so over the past 3 years, our task force has been developing a plan, a body survivor leadership panel, and funding to support expert compensated survivor leadership in the anti-human trafficking space in Contra Costa County. And so that panel will play a central role in guiding the development and the operations of our task force. And with this, it's vital to understand that not all survivors are the same, and true survivor leadership creates space for diverse perspectives and positions to be heard and integrated into our common efforts. And so we often ask whether our systems are working, but I want to leave us with the better questions, and that is, are our systems working for survivors? Because if a survivor walks away still unsafe, still unheard, still unsupported, then we have more work to do. And that work is going to require all of us working together. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much, DA Beckton. What a great presentation, overview of all the important elements of our work, especially collaboration. Thank you also for mentioning the connection between data collection, analysis, and how both actually guide us when we plan our action and fill in the gaps of service. This was very helpful. I'm also grateful that you mentioned vulnerable communities, especially two important groups, youth and immigrants. And we're lucky that today Dr. Mais and Dr. Hernandez Arriaga will speak about these groups and how they work with them. Thank you so much, and we'll have questions at the end of the presentation. I hope you can stay with us. We know you're busy, but if there is question to DA Beckton, you can put them in the chat and she will see when she can respond to these questions. Thank you so much. And now I'm pleased to invite to the floor Dr. Mais. And Dr. Mais, the Dream Youth Clinic, your baby and your great, great project is a well-known, respected program that helps youth. And we know youth is vulnerable to human trafficking group. Please let us know how you work, give us overview of the program, and at the end we'll have questions, of course. Thank you.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here and happy to be with this group and see so many familiar faces and collaborators here. My name is Dr. Aisha Mays, and I'm the CEO and founder of the Dream Youth Clinic based in Oakland and just on the other side of the bridge and based in Oakland. We are a youth health organization that provides no cost medical services, mental health services, youth programs, youth leadership opportunities, and digital health education for young people. We center our work on young people who've been made most vulnerable by our communities, by our society, young people who are forgotten about, not even being thought about when we think about needs for services and support, and really highlight Black girls, Black youth, other youth of color, and gender expansive youth. Several of our key priority populations, because we do work with very highly vulnerable youth of color. We know that intersectionality is at play when we're talking about youth of color. So the same young people who are impacted by homelessness are Black and brown youth. The same young folks who are impacted by sex trafficking are Black and brown youth. And so our several of our core populations that we provide sort of more wraparound and holistic services for our young people impacted by human trafficking, particularly sex trafficking, and we are doing more around labor trafficking. Also young people who are pregnant and parenting. So we have a very strong and robust young mothers program. And then young people just impacted by community and family violence, which we see all across the Bay. But certainly our young people who come to Dream and who are in Oakland, Alameda County, Contra Costa County, Black and brown young folks really experiencing family violence, community violence, interpersonal violence. Like I said, we provide all free services for young people, regardless of residence. We also know that with young people, young folks are very transient, and adolescence is a time of independence in general, where young people are going here and there. And certainly when young people don't have enough of the social supports, family support, community support, they're often going cross county. We all see it. So we care for young people regardless of their residential status. That is both national and international residential status. We will see young people for no cost, all no cost services. I'd like to show a little video just of kind of if I can do that, maybe I can share my screen, and I'm hoping that my audio will work with this as well. That will give you just a little bit of flavor of who we are. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Let me go back and I'm going to adjust my video first, my audio.
Oh,
I'm just going to try and change my audio first.
this is not,
For the
it showed
for the
me.
audio, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but I appeared on the screen instead of, oh, now it's okay.
Okay.
Oh,
So
no.
I'm gonna go back and change my audio really quickly so you can hear the audio to
Yeah, unfortunately, it shows me on the screen. I don't
okay.
know.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And just let me know if you can hear this. I'm gonna turn the audio on.
Yeah, there isn't sound,
Okay.
though.
Okay, I'm gonna just forego that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna forego the video because sometimes it's just difficult. Okay. Sorry, did someone come off mute? Okay. All right. So you can go to our website and see the video. It's right there. I'll put the website in the it's dreamyouthclinic.org. Just kind of gives you a flavor of who we are. And so again, our mission is to provide all free services for young people and really caring for the most vulnerable young folks. And in terms of our work around with trafficking, so I'm a family medicine and adolescent medicine physician, and I've spent my entire career here in the Bay Area, mostly in the East Bay, but I also used to also work in the San Francisco Department of Public Health with the youth clinics there as well. And throughout my entire career, I've always worked with young people impacted by trafficking, and really came to that work through my role at juvenile when I was the medical director at Juvenile Hall many years ago in Alameda County, and started to in working with young people in our medical clinic, hearing stories, the how young people would describe their relationships and the relationships with a romantic partner, with an intimate partner, and what that romantic and or intimate partner was asking that young person to do as part of their relationship. And so the reason why I describe that is because, something I tell my staff is like, we use our terms and our titles and our labels, and they may be really different from the labels that young people use. And so it's really important for us to just listen to how a young person describes their relationship, listen to how they describe circumstances and situations that they're in, because they might be telling us about trafficking, but they're not using the word trafficking. They never use that word. They're not using exploitation. They're not using trafficker. They're not using exploiter. Those are words that we've created. But and it's really important as we connect with young people and as we connect with individuals that we are continuing to listen and partner with them, and really listening to their stories, to understand the situations that they're in, and to also listen to hear where they would like for us to support them. I have done lots of work around training medical providers to understand some of the common signs and symptoms of trafficking as a young person may show up in an exam room, and some things that may make us think that this is a situation where a young person may be being exploited or being trafficked. Again, there is no 100% recipe or cookbook for this. It really is around um, having that relationship with the young people, and understanding what some of the red flags are, so that we're able to, as we're listening, we're able to understand more about how to help a young person. Um, and with that, so training medical providers across California, in our county, and also nationally. We know that the national statistics with healthcare providers, we know that this is national data, both local and national data, which mirror each other, that over 80% of individuals who have been trafficked, both sex trafficking, labor trafficking, across all ages. Over 80% have seen a medical provider within a year. That year, the year that they are experiencing trafficking, they have seen at least one time a medical provider, whether that be in the emergency room, at a family planning clinic, at a primary clinic, at a pop-up clinic, a mobile clinic. They've seen a medical provider somewhere. 80% of individuals who've been trafficked. And we know that less than 30% of medical providers are aware of what trafficking is, of this being able to spot the signs and understand what some of the risk, the healthcare risk factors are around trafficking, and feel very feel ill-equipped to support and care for individuals who are impacted by trafficking. That differential is also a driver of poor health outcomes, of more extreme and ongoing health issues that individuals experience who've been trafficked, and also the discrimination and the stigma that individuals experience when they've been trafficked. We also know, we've heard from our young people, that sometimes young people don't want to go to these art spaces. They don't want to go to the emergency room. They don't want to go to the primary care clinic. They don't want to go to the family planning clinic because of how they're treated when they show up in those environments, maybe because of what they're wearing, or because of how they're talking, or even because of their injury. Even particular injuries come with are very highly stigmatized. And when we think about intersectionality, our young people experience all those things. So you have a Black or brown young person who shows up, and that's one. And they show up and they're dressed in a way that a provider feels is inappropriate. That's two. And then they have a particular injury that can seem very off-putting. That's three. So all those things are then compounded and create very high levels of stigma and discrimination that young people experience from the medical community. And so what we do at Dream, we do our work utilizing the principles of reproductive justice. So the reproductive justice framework is a framework that was created by Black women in the 90s in Chicago, that really looked at and gave language to the upstream societal structural inequities that individuals experience, that challenge our healthcare, that challenge individuals to being able to access healthcare, to care for their health, to be able to make autonomous choices about their bodies and their health. These women centered this also around reproductive health and reproductive decisions, but the reproductive justice framework can be used for healthcare in general, because it really is looking at those upstream impacts, and not only looking at them, but it's important that that as a healthcare community, that we start to address some of those upstream impacts, because we know that that's what's really impacting our folks' health. And so we use the RJ framework with all the work that we do at Dream. And so some of our specific services that we provide for young people who are impacted by trafficking at Dream, we are a very integrated model. So we provide medical services, mental health services, youth programs, and digital health education. And that's all very integrated for our young people. And so we provide services and support around trafficking across all of those realms of our work. So a young person can come into Dream, and so we have 4 locations in Oakland. We have 3 medical clinics. So downtown on 5th and Jefferson, Dream Wellness. We're also co-located in the Covenant House in Jack London Square. We're also co-located at the Tiny House Youth Empowerment Village in East Oakland on Hagenberger. And then we just in February started the first ever in the country mobile clinic for young people impacted by sex trafficking on International Boulevard. So we are on International Boulevard on Tuesdays and Fridays, providing wraparound free medical services, basic needs support, whether that be menstrual products, condoms, snacks, resources, and then also health navigation right there on International Boulevard for our young people. This is the first time that's ever been done in the country, really providing services in a main corridor where young people are experiencing trafficking. This was really important for us because central to our work at Dream is supporting young people impacted by trafficking. And we felt like we were doing that really well in our clinics, being able to provide transportation support for young people to come to the clinic and all free services. And we started to see that even with that, we noticed that there were some young people who weren't coming into the clinic, who did not feel comfortable coming into any clinic space, or who were not being allowed to leave the main corridor of where trafficking is happening to care for their health. And so we knew that those are even the most vulnerable young people around trafficking. Those young people who are, we know that being coerced and forced, and the loss of autonomy is paramount with young people who are experiencing trafficking. And we knew that those young people were even the most vulnerable. And so we decided that we wanted to set up our services right there on the main corridor in Oakland, where young people are experiencing street level sex trafficking. We know that trafficking happens in lots of spaces, street level trafficking, and we have young people coming to our tent every single time that we're set up, and there are more and more young people, and young people come and bring other young people, and so we know that we are providing vital services for youth who may not have otherwise received them. And the last thing that I want to say is there are actually two things. Um, Really setting up our mobile clinic has also expanded just the way that we think about and even expanded our approach to supporting and serving young people impacted by trafficking. Um, Really from it, and now even more into the ethos around a healing for young people. How do we create supportive, safe, and healing spaces for young people who are impacted by trafficking? It is not our role to save young people. We're not here to save young folks who are impacted by trafficking or exploitation. Um, Sitting in the role of savior also removes autonomy from an individual. And we know that our young people's autonomy has been stripped from them. And so it's not for us to decide what is the best thing for them. That also takes away autonomy. If we're sitting in the space of saving young people, we're also saying, you need this and you can't do it for yourself, and we're here to do it for you instead. And so we don't save. What we do is we create a system of support, safety, and healing. And we are doing that now right on International Boulevard. And so it's like, how can we now reimagine and that corridor, a corridor that has been the epicenter of harm and violence and exploitation of our young people. But what could actually happen when we infuse right onto that corridor safety, healing, support for young people? So it's been a real revolutionary thing for us as well. We're all experiencing it. And I think that's something that's so important that we can as a takeaway around how can we create systems of healing, support, and safety for our young folks. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your inspiring work. And you keep adding new services, great ideas, uh, and serving survivors at the spot. It's so important for those who are international audience or out of San Francisco Bay Area. International Boulevard is the place where many individuals are trafficked or work selling sex, but there is also youth there, and your help is critical. Thank you so much again, and I hope you can stay for the questions. I'm sure there'll be more. And now I'm very pleased to invite to the floor our wonderful Rose Muhar. Rose, you founded Justice at Last, and you have been directing the work of this pro bono law firm for many years. We just celebrated the 10 years of the founding, and you serve as principal attorney. Please give us overview of your work, and later we'll have questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Antonia. It's an honor to be here. So I want to recognize all of you for showing up to learn about what we're doing here in the San Francisco Bay Area to help support and uplift survivors. And I'm kind of a little bit echoing of what District Attorney Becton and Dr. Mays has just shared. And so I'll talk about the work that we do, but just want to talk about, what Aisha Mays had just touched on about the rescue. And how it's really critical for us and the anti-trafficking work that we are doing is to not take on that savior perspective about we're here to tell you what you need to do and who you are. Our work is completely based on recognizing survivors where they're at, and paying attention to their language. And as an attorney, my job is not to tell them you are a victim of human trafficking, but to let the survivor know what their rights are. So that's really at the foundation of the work that Justice at Last does. We're 10 years old, or a little over 10 years old, and I founded the organization because I had been doing some work supporting survivors of trafficking for years, trying to figure out what would be the best way to uplift and support their needs. And what I realized is there needed to be a legal service provider that was kind of like a one-stop shop. So many survivors of trafficking have legal needs when they're no longer being trafficked. And often the conversation tends to be focused on the prosecuting of the trafficker, which is what we all want to see. But what happens to the survivor afterwards? If we're returning them to where they were prior to the trafficking, that means they're still vulnerable. So what can we do to meet them where they're at and to help address whatever issues that might be preventing them from being able to move forward? So the organization is mobile. We meet clients where they're at. It's rare for them to come to us. We do have offices throughout the Bay Area, but we want to really break down barriers to ensure that survivors do get access to specialized legal supportive care. We've served over 2,000 survivors of human trafficking since we were founded, and we've trained over 14,000 service providers, law enforcement agencies, stakeholders doing in the legal systems. Because again, as what's already been stressed, is it really needs to be this collaborative approach. Our community needs to really understand the impacts of trafficking in order to help us prevent and stop it and to support and uplift survivors. I kind of already touched on, we're this general practice law firm. So we provide immigration relief. We provide crime victim rights, where we're actually supporting and representing the client when they move forward and they actually go to testify, or maybe they make a statement to law enforcement. We are doing criminal records clearance because we know that so many survivors of trafficking do get criminalized over the course of their trafficking. There was a survey of over 300 survivors nationwide that talked about were they ever arrested or convicted of a crime over the course of their trafficking, and 91% had been arrested over the course of their trafficking. And this is 300 survivors. So it's very real that we are missing the gaps. And so back to this education and awareness and training, it's so important, but then also to recognize at a government level how critical it is to provide supportive services for the organizations doing this work, creating the awareness. As District Attorney Becton talked about, this task force and the collaborative approach, Justice at Last is a proud member of the Contra Costa County Human Trafficking Task Force. And it's critical that providers that are doing that work are supported so we can make sure that survivors get the resources that they actually do need. So San Francisco is one of the major Bay Areas, or the San Francisco Bay Area, I should say, is one of the major areas in the nation that is experiencing trafficking, not just sex trafficking, but labor trafficking. And we do recognize that there's legal gaps and that often survivors do end up getting criminalized. So our approach is, meeting clients where they're at, breaking down barriers, representing them, whatever their legal issue might be. And if we don't have the expertise to support them, we get them connected to other either legal aids or pro bono attorneys that will be able to meet those legal needs, whatever they might be. And then the capacity building. Just a quick example of the work that we do, because I've just kind of thrown a lot at you with the training. We're attorneys. We also have client advocates that are making sure basic needs are being met so that the survivor can focus on their legal need. Again, survivors have at least two, if not more, legal needs when they are no longer in the trafficking situation. But at the moment they're no longer in the trafficking situation, where are they living? Are they stably housed? Can they get access to benefits? Do they even have identification? Are they even banked? Most of our clients are unbanked. They don't even have access to getting, even if they do get a paycheck, where are they going to go cash it? They're paying these exorbitant fees. And so we're really trying to look at the broader picture to come together. If you're a survivor of trafficking and you don't know where you're going to sleep tonight, or you don't know how you're going to feed your children, you don't care that you have a subpoena to go to court tomorrow. You're focused on your main needs. So our client advocates work in tandem with our attorneys. And just a quick example, I'll share Jane Doe. She was sex trafficked when she was young, at the age from 17 to 24, throughout the entire Bay Area. She was arrested and convicted for prostitution, solicitation, and then driving while under the influence while being sex trafficked because she was self-medicating herself to get through the situation. So Justice at Last was able to come in with our legal team and our client advocates, ensure that she got stable housing so that she was in a position where we could clear her criminal record. California's got an amazing vacatur law that focuses on survivors clearing their criminal records or vacating them, as long as it's not a violent crime. And we were able to work with Jane Doe, support her, get her record cleared so that she was at a point, and not only that, because of the impact on her driver's license for being arrested for driving while under the influence, we were able to get that cleared for her as well, and her driver's license reinstated. She was able to go back to school, get her GED, which is the equivalent of a high school diploma. She currently now is at a community college working towards her goal is to become a nurse, and she's in stable housing. And so I'm just sharing this because it's not just this come talk to an attorney and when need will be met. There's multiple issues here, and we're really working with community partners all the way around. So this is our team. Like I quickly mentioned, we're attorneys and we're advocates or case managers, just trying to ensure that survivors are being met where they're at. They're getting the representation with while that's being trauma informed, culturally appropriate, linguistically appropriate. Our practices and the work that we do supporting and uplifting our clients and our trainings and our outreach and awareness are in partnership with our advisors. Our advisors are made up of subject matter experts with lived experience, and that is so critical to have that expertise guide our work and uplift our work. And it holds us accountable, right? It's making sure our advisors pop in and out and do trainings with us, and they give us feedback on the spot about what we did not well or what we did well. So we're grateful for that, and we just really think that's important. As Dr. Mays has shared in her own practice and the work that we're doing, the youth are guiding and uplifting, and her work is based on the feedback and the partnerships that she's getting from the youth. That is critical when we're trying to support and uplift survivors. My screen might be frozen. Here's just some quick data points. I briefly already talked about that. The work that we're doing, again, is we're trying to be this one-stop shop because we found that survivors of trafficking have so many legal needs, and it's critical. Prior to Justice at Last, what I was seeing is that a survivor, maybe they were an immigrant, so that they'd have to go speak to an organization that did immigration relief. But maybe they were also in a family law battle over custody with their children and the trafficker. So they were appearing in family law over these disputes over child custody. And then in addition to that, we see that so many survivors have extreme lost wages based on the exploitation that they've had. California's got some amazing victim compensation rights specifically for survivors of trafficking. So we've been able to ensure that to get our clients the maximum amount, which is only $20,000 It's capped up to 2 years at minimum wage. It's not to say that the value of the trafficking or exploitation is minimum wage, but it's just a starting point for a survivor to get access. And so once a survivor is able to get that compensation, all of a sudden, being unbanked, not having being unstably housed, and suddenly getting this check for $20,000 is mind-boggling. Very excited, but then what happens next? Are they even more vulnerable by suddenly getting this large amount of money? And so we've created this financial empowerment and advocacy program, thanks to our advisors who are the ones that guided us and helped us, told us of the gap that was needed. And so now we have an advocacy program that helps survivors focus on financial literacy. Again, because if we're putting the survivor back to where they were after they were trafficked, they're still vulnerable. And what we're trying to do is not only ensure that their rights are enforced, but that they have a means to move forward, and get out of that situation again. So here's some numbers that I briefly mentioned about the training impact that we do and how critical it is. Again, sharing this because it's important wherever we are in the community to make sure that we are embedded with the service providers, with pro bono attorneys, with law enforcement, with task force, and even businesses to make sure that they understand and are aware that trafficking is happening within their industries. Here's some top legal needs that we have found that are very common for survivors of trafficking. We always provided crime victim rights representation. It's something that both myself and our legal director, Carolyn Kim, are very passionate about to ensure that they are enforced. Which, we've already briefly talked a little bit about immigration. The impact that we're seeing right now with the ICE raids is that we do know that many immigrants are not willing to come forward and report the trafficking because of the reality that they're going to be deported. We've actually had 3 of our clients who had pending trafficking T visas. So trafficking T visa it's designed for immigrants who come forward and report their trafficking. 3 of our clients were detained, arrested, and deported. So we do know that it's a reality, right? This is what traffickers are constantly messaging. If you tell anyone, they're not going to believe you, or you're going to get deported if you're an immigrant. Likewise, for US citizens, they're less likely to come forward as well, in particular those that are sex trafficked, because of everything we're seeing going on right now with the Epstein files. Because traffickers are consistently saying the same messaging. No one's going to believe you if you come forward and report it, or if you do, no one's going to care. That is the exact messaging we're seeing right now with the Epstein files, when we can go up to the highest level at our government here in the United States, where there's accusations of trafficking, sex trafficking of a minor, sexual assault, and other horrific crimes, and nothing is happening. So the messaging to our community at large is, we don't care, and we've got to change that. So that's part of the work that we do, in particular with legal representation and our advocacy program. I want to be mindful of time, but I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you. Thanks so much for the opportunity to check in.
Thank you so much, Rose. Great presentation and great work. Thank you for all the all of us can see by your presentation that justice at last goes much beyond just legal representation and legal assistance. But this is the core of your work, and it's so important for survivors. What we are trying to establish here is that no survivor can fully recover and really open the options in front of them without legal help and removing all the barriers that arise from the past that they were able to escape. So we're very grateful for your visionary approach to include all the other components that support the legal services and make them more effective. Thank you so much. You mentioned one of and not only you, D.A. Beckton as well, immigrants. And all of you that spoke so far addressed also mental health and how the trauma affects the survivors. So I'm now so pleased to invite to the floor Dr. Belinda Hernandez Arriaga. Please let us know about your exciting work, known across the Bay Area, all the wonderful services that you added to your program.
Thank you so much, Antonia, and to the panel. Wow, it's just very inspiring to be here with all of you today. And I'm learning as we go along as well, but just touches my heart because this is a very important group of survivors, that we have to be moving and thinking about every day. How do we create and grow and expand services that is centered in care and centered in what they need? And just hearing about the mobile bus and Justice at Last and all the work at the DA's office and more is really important. My name is Dr. Belinda Hernandez Arriaga, and I am also a licensed clinical social worker. I've been working with victims for many years, I think for 20 years. And I am the founder of a program named ALAS, Ayudando Latinos a Soñar in Half Moon Bay. Our primary work is centered on working with our community, our Latinx community, the farmer community, children, families, mothers, immigrants, and we have a whole kind of effort that's really grown out of our mental health um, work that has been expansive in working very closely with victims and with survivors and with those that have experienced human trafficking, unfortunately. We also have gone to the border. I've worked with Sister Norma Pimentel at the South Texas border for several years, continue to be working with her closely. Um, we work with different immigrant rights groups, particularly Bill Hing and the team from USF. I'm also faculty at USF in the counseling psychology. So we're always looking at ways that we're engaging in growing mental health services. And that's a primary heart of my work that I bring today as both advocacy and mental health in the ways that we're thinking about. How do we show up in culturally sensitive, competent ways that allow for us to engage victims in very confidential spaces, but also in ways that address all their basic needs? So when we think about mental health, we don't just think about only the emotional and psychological services that they're going to receive, but also the umbrella of what they need, like making legal referrals and looking at those folks that, um, in many ways, would consider benefiting from, um, medical and basic needs and housing and even education. So it's a whole wellness model that we look at. But we also use at Alas a cultura cura model of mental health, which means that we steep our work in cultural frameworks of art, of music, of food, of listening circles, of motherhood, of coming together. How do we heal with our natural medicine of the elements of what many folks bring from their home countries that get forgotten in the counseling space? Like, how do we use testimonial narratives of therapy for them to be able to choose or not choose which story they tell, right? That we're not directing the care based on having to re-traumatize, but give them the agency to share, to write, to draw, to sing, to create spoken word, to to be in community around how we develop this care for victims, because we're trying to decolonize mental health at Allah's every day, whether it's working with farm workers and going out on, in fact, just as we talked about the bus, we have this Equity Express bus that's behind me, that goes out to the fields. And we have a mental health room on this bus, to be able to talk to folks in private so they have a safe space. We have 25 computers where they can come and take classes. So Justice at Last could zoom in and do a training with them out in the fields. And also, we have space on the bus for them to go into confidential um, rooms so they can meet with their doctors, their medical or victims agency, maybe even, DA's office, different appointments that they need to have in private. There's confidential space there, Wi-Fi access. So we're trying to flip the traditional counseling model to really encompass this whole person, this wellness, reach them where they're at. We just went to Peru and did an international visit with Generaciones, to actually work and learn from child victims in Peru and what they experience, and being homeless and alone, and what that looks like with Generacion, being able to give them a space, but also to understand our work in mental health and their needs, and make these connections in many ways. So our work is very individual centered. um, it really relies on each individual to look deeply at what they need, where they're at in this process. It's also to really work closely with community agencies, and engage the whole person. Because as we know, and I just want to highlight this, trauma changes the brain. We already know that. There's no evidence needed other than what's already been shown out there, right? From the best out there in research. That trauma changes the brain. But what also helps to restore brain and to, in many ways, start to address the trauma is sensory work, sensory integration. But when we look at that sensory integration work that's being done in the mental health field, a lot of it is very just kind of prescriptive. But what we are looking at is how do we deep tap into the cultural sensory of the community that already exists? How do we look at the cultural arts as healing interventions in communities that go beyond just the arts, but rather it's medicine of the people? It's a cultural stimulation of the people that needs to heal. And how do we translate that to working with victims? It happens, you all. We see it come alive. We see it in the way um, that they collectively speak together, that they show up, that their body resonates with the art that they're doing, the poems that they're writing, the food that they're making, bringing in the herbs, that they use for sensory, for integration. That our talk therapy becomes that narrative story, and that wellness is created by community. And many times, like, there's a communal process too. It's not just individual. So at Allah's, we have a research center. We're working with Stanford. We're working with Allah's to uncover best practices to grow our work, to understand the Cultura Cura model, to work with victims front and center. And I also, have been grappling with saying this today because it's still on the front of my heart. But as a farm worker, program, team, and advocate, and talking about victims today, I think I would be remiss to not mention that so many of us right now are holding in our hearts the shocking and devastating news of Cesar Chavez. Um, and I want to bring that forward because it's part of my practice that we can't hide, and as painful as it is, in this discussion today, we resolved at Allah's to put victims always first. women, children, and men, and across the spectrum, of individuals, and however they identify that, have been victimized. And power and leadership does not stand above our president to do justice by them. And I just want to, name this and think about all of us that are, in many ways, like, have that trauma reaction in our own lives, our own families, our own experiences, the community we work with, those we are seeing every day, and putting that forward, that I'm standing with you all today. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. What a great presentation, and thank you for bringing so many important points that are associated with uh, psychological trauma, uh, which follows also all the other elements of human trafficking and the methods that the traffickers use. I'm so pleased that all of you, please mute yourself so we can continue with our question and answer session. And going back to what I was saying, it's important that all of you emphasized on collaboration. Each of you focuses on certain specific area of the anti-human trafficking work and support of survivors. However, each of you go beyond that area and collaborate, because this is so critical in the work against human trafficking, the multidisciplinary approach, the multi-agency involvement, and the community involvement. So now I want to open to question, and I'm so grateful that you took from your busy time to stay also for the questions. Dr. Mais left, unfortunately, but I see a question. Rose, maybe you can address it. Wendy Ellingson is asking if there is equivalent of your organization in Southern California.
Thank you. Yes, I did put it in the chat, but I can resend it. So, Justice at Last and Cast LA are the only two organizations in the state of California that exclusively work with survivors and provide legal and social supportive services. So, Cast LA serves primarily Los Angeles County, some of Southern, but primarily Los Angeles County. We serve the Bay Area, even though we're only funded to serve 12 counties. Last year in 2025, we represented clients in 28 counties because we know the realities of what happens with trafficking. It's never just one community or county. Survivors, whether they're sex or labor trafficked, end up being trafficked, not just statewide, but national, and even for some of our advisors have been trafficked globally as well. So Castellet is the other organization. Thanks.
I actually had also a question to DA Beckton about her observations, just looking at the cases that your county has on human trafficking. How big is the issue of survivors being criminalized in a way by the system? We know that it's very hard to establish evidence and eligibility for vocateur. How do you view these issues, and do you have any observations that we can bring here to the audience on that?
Let me okay. I want to make sure I was unmuted. Thank you.
You are.
So it's a great question, and I think that's why it's so important to mention here in Contra Costa County, our multidisciplinary collaborative approach, and also making sure that we have the holistic services and strong protections, making sure that as we approach this problem, we are not trying to criminalize those who are actually being victimized by this crime of human trafficking. And so our approach is really to go after those who are the ones who are exploiting others or attempting to, misuse others, and making sure that we are supporting those who are survivors in a way that is holistic, as opposed to approaching them as with criminal charges.
Thank you so much. And
Sorry, can I just chime in as well?
oh
I just
yeah,
want to share,
absolutely.
and recognize District Attorney Becton, and then also Katrina Natalie, who is on the call, who helps, uh, is the collaborator, the facilitator for the task force. This county and Contra Costa County is the only one that made, concerted efforts to create a protocol for that vacature. And so we're really proud of that and the work that the county has done all the way around within the task force. We were proud to be a part of it. Just again, going back to that collaboration, we're hoping that the protocols that have been set in place can actually be implemented throughout other counties throughout the Bay, because it's just so critical to recognize that the survivors do get criminalized. Thanks.
And I thank you for acknowledging that. It's a good example for the rest of the counties to hopefully. I personally would love to, with you, Rose, to and replicate what was created in Contra Costa County. Rose, you brought another.
No, I was just going to say, I see that Katrina Natal, want to recognize her. Thank you, Rose, for lifting her name up. She did place in the chat that that we're only the second county in California to have the vacatur protocol. And so while I have the microphone, let me just recognize her for all the amazing work she's doing with our task force, as well as Shannon Mahoney, who heads up our victim advocate team, also doing some amazing work in this space as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all the good work that they are doing. I wanted to go back to a very important point that Rose made, and it's about how power. Actually, I would say all of you made the point, because Belinda also touched that, speaking about Chavez. How power affects our work to prove crime and to bring justice to victims. And we have so many cases. I see here we have returning participants from UK, Metka. We have similar example in UK with the grooming gangs. Enormous investigation where thousands of young girls have been exploited. And we have the Epstein case. And these are just the well-known cases, but there's so many others. We had in Northern California a case where police forces abused minor girls that were investigated or victims in investigation. So if you can elaborate a little bit about that, what we can do, and maybe all of you can, Belinda already started by saying we have to make this ethical choice, this choice when inspirational person has also committed terrible things. We have to support the victims, but I would love to hear Rose and all of you on this. Rose?
Sure. I mean, about recognizing the power and control. And I think that Dr. Mays touched it well. I know she had to step off, but even talking about when a survivor comes to a community-based organization for supportive services, that the staff themselves have to check their own biases. If maybe the survivor is provocatively dressed, or maybe they're using language, foul language. And so just being mindful and recognizing our own internal biases. So we spend a lot of time just training our staff about that, not just our staff, but also, you know, our board of directors as well. And then how important it is for the messaging to be culturally sensitive and linguistically, you know, providing those services that meet survivors where they're at. I'm happy to, I just wanted to just touch on that. It's something that we recognize as an issue, right, for providers, not just community-based organizations. If we're looking at medical, across the board, whatever the industry might be, law enforcement as well.
Well, I look at the chat and also in our audience. Are there any other questions? Is there anybody else that want to step in? We still have 5 minutes. These are long sessions, but I'm glad we had enough time for the speakers. I see Katrina. Katrina, please, the floor is yours.
Hi, Antonia. Thank you for putting this program together. This is really fantastic. I have to say, although I work closely with several of the presenters, I always learn something new through these presentations, and develop an even greater sense of recognition and awe at what folks are doing. I have a question for Belinda. I'm very curious. I loved hearing about the work that you're doing, especially trying to develop sort of culturally specific or culturally responsive ways to conduct mental health or do mental health work with survivors, particularly your testimonial therapy. And I'm just wondering if you ever do training, if you ever reach out. In our county, we're trying to develop more resources that are with folks that can provide specialized counseling services related to human trafficking, and not just the sex component, but also labor trafficking, and then services that are culturally responsive. And it sounds like that's something you're doing. So I'd love to hear if that's something that you do, and what you kind of think folks should be thinking about when they're trying to build this in better to what they have available in their communities.
Yes, thank you so much, Katrina. What county are you from?
Contra Costa.
Oh, Contra Costa County. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, no, definitely, I think that we are available to do training. I know that I'm very invested. We're working right now to try to build another clinic for the first time. It's we haven't really announced it widely, but I'll share here in Salinas, because we are trying to go to counties that need to have more expanded services, is particularly in these areas and with the vulnerable communities that we work with, especially the farm worker community. When you think about the exploitation there, there's so much. So there we have a whole model that we use. We integrate, like as I shared, that sensory component, the testimonial, and it's a very individualized approach that you can use with the community that you're in. So thinking about, the strengths in your community, the medicine of your community, the resources in your agency, the clinicians that you work with. So I would love to visit with you more about that if there's something more we could do. But yes. And I'll put my email in the chat.
Yes, please feel free to add information to the chat. It's opened exactly for promoting your work. And I saw Belinda already posted earlier. Please support our nonprofit organizations. Please add your links for those who would be willing to donate or contact you for additional information. I see many people in the audience, many of the audience are already involved in anti-human trafficking work. And it was so valuable that you're presentation dug in depth in the anti-trafficking work, since we have such informed audience. Thank you so much to our speakers for being so inspirational, for the good work that you're doing, including supporting survivors. And well, I see one more hand, so I will give 1 minute for a last question.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering, because I had to be in and out, can copies of this video recording be made available for participants in the session?
So we will prepare copies, and I will put in the chat email where you can contact me. But the video will be also posted on the platform of the UN Commission on the Status of Women,
On Whova?
the NGO Forum platform.
Okay,
Or
thank
maybe the
you.
best way would be just to go back to the platform in a few days and see the video.
Okay, thank you.
And I will add my contact information to the chat. But now I just want to finish by thanking the audience for being so supportive, engaged, and prepared for this meeting. Thank you all so much. Let's hope that the good work will continue, and let's congratulate ourselves for our leadership, because we are part of this fight, and we are leaders, all of us. Thank you so much.